Why hello! Ignore the miss, as always. I'm Ren and this is Grunge Granny. We just had a full moon in Aquarius and we either are in Leo season or we're heading up to it. And all of my readings and messages that I've been getting lately, especially if you've watched any of my Book of Shadows videos, have been saying that I need to show up in my worth. But as a visual and a tactile person, if you remember that from my bullet journaling videos, I like to have something visual and tactile to use as my own reference because it helps me so that as I'm working on manifesting something or setting any intentions, I have something to look at and work on physically. I also personally feel like the tactile act of drawing out a thing is a form of my own meditation. It's a thing that connects my body to the action that I am doing. I know a lot of people use scripting, and I feel like this is a version of that for myself. So what is my actual goal or intention? I am literally working on manifesting, embodying my own self-worth and showing up in it. So to work on this intention, I grabbed my Himi jelly gouache and my Dina Wakley media journal and created something. And I'm gonna talk to you about it as I show you what I do. Let's get into it.
I was raised Catholic as a kid, and even then I always wondered why we were praying for specific things from God. Because isn't everything a part of His divine purpose? And it feels strange to follow an omniscient and omnipotent being and then pray for something different. Really, it seemed more like we don't understand nearly at all what God would understand. So shouldn't we just pray for understanding and acceptance of whatever this divine purpose and will is? And in that same way, that's kind of how I manifest now. I don't ever really want to focus so much on manifesting specific things or items because I would rather manifest characteristics that would just allow me to manifest absolutely whatever in the future more freely. So that means that I will focus on manifesting things like patience and gratitude and self-worth and understanding. If you saw my Book of Shadows videos, then you know that I usually always do a tarot spread with every new moon and full moon so that I can direct my focus and have something that tells me, hey, focus on this for the next 2 weeks. And whether it's a new moon or a full moon, I focus on whether it is the starting of something or the releasing of something, or just looking for obstacles or how I'm holding myself back or how I can push myself forward. The message that I keep getting over and over is that I need to be working on cultivating more gratitude and noticing the blessings that I have right now, as well as showing up in my self-worth, and that is why I did this picture. I do believe that we are all intrinsically worthy, but I know that I do a lot of things that don't align with that belief. I really feel like parenting is the eye-opener for that because I can see my actions and the things that I'm doing and ask myself, if my daughter was doing this, would I still be okay with it? If she went days without showering or eating or drinking water or not sleeping, how would I react to that? I would be upset. I would tell her that she needs to prioritize herself, that she matters first. So then I need to be able to set that example. And it is in setting that example and doing those things that I do show up in my self-worth. There's something about this jelly gouache that automatically kind of feels like play. It's so fun. It's squishy and bright and colorful and different than other art supplies, and even the case and the brushes that it comes with and the palette that it has. There's something about it that does feel childish, and so it felt appropriate to use the Himi jelly gouache as kind of an inner child fuel. And going ahead and working in this notebook, because this is a notebook that I started 3 years ago, I think, meaning to write an affirmation every day, and then I just stopped. So using these materials felt like a way that I was able to say, hey, I'm going to feed my inner child in this way, and I'm also going to show up in showing that I will follow through on things that I decide I want to start. And that is why I decided to use the Dina Wakley media journal. I had to correct that. And this jelly gouache. And for the image, I wanted it to be what I see in my head as showing up. To me, what does that look like? And I thought of an image of a kind of feminine figure looking upward and just ready to receive in these deep purples, kind of the colors of meditation and higher consciousness, but with hair that reminded me of fire and that kind of Queen of Wands energy of going for it and passion. And even though I was recording this, I made a point to constantly focus on just playing, bringing myself back to the act of playing around with materials and just seeing where it would go. There was a little bit where I got frustrated and I felt like it wasn't coming out the way I was seeing it in my head, and that's when I knew I needed to step away, and I actually was really, really proud of myself because I felt myself needing to take a break from this picture and trusting that when I came back I would know what to do, and I did. I instantly knew that I needed to mix that yellow ochre with the yellow and the white to attach the hair to the head, and that was going to be the thing that created that contrast and that brightness. I was really proud of being able to feel that and know that, and trusted my abilities, even if it was just for fun.
This morning I was dropping off my daughter at summer camp, and on the way home I had this epiphany. I suppose you can call it a download. Some people might say that it was a message from spirit, and I sometimes feel like it is a message from spirit when all of a sudden dots connect. I've always struggled with the idea of letting go. Whenever people say to let go of your fears or your insecurities or the things that are connected to your traumas and these stories that we tell ourselves that are a part of our identity, that we have to let go of those stories so that we can rebuild our identities. I had always had this visual of a room where my inner child was sitting with all of those previous stories, where my insecurity and my fear and my trauma were all smushed together in this finite room that was very small. And only if I went in and let out some of those things would there be enough room to bring in peace or surrender or joy or gratitude or grace to the inner child. And that's how I'd always visualized it. And so it's always been a struggle whenever people have said, like, we'll just let it go. We'll just let it go. Because I've thought, exactly how does one do that? I mean, I think I am. I think I'm going into my headspace and letting out these things and not really worrying about them. But if they still come up later, does that mean that they're back in that finite room? Does that mean that all these things are just crushed in there? And then I realized today that it's not about that at all, and that it's not a finite room. At least this is not how I am going to visualize it from now on. It's something that helped me during COVID was to stop seeing things as letting go. I think that this might be even an aspect of Christianity that when I was in the Christian church I always did like, was that we give our troubles to God, and I still agree with that. I still think that we should give those things over to any higher power that you believe in. In the past, I was seeing myself holding on to maybe this raft of all these things. Maybe this raft was the raft of the room. Maybe we were on a river, and the entire room was wrapped around with a rope, and I was holding onto this rope so tightly because I didn't want to let go of my inner child or deny it or seem like I wasn't being accountable for these things by letting it go. But then when I realized that it wasn't about letting it go, but handing it over, was I able to actually let it go? What I mean by that is that instead of me thinking, I'm gonna let go of this rope and everything is just gonna go willy-nilly, I'm not even gonna know where it goes. It's gonna be somewhere still inside of me, but maybe I won't be able to see it and I won't always know when things are coming up. And how am I supposed to do my inner child work when I'm just letting it go? But instead, it was that I needed to let go of this rope and hand it over to a higher power. Not let it go, but hand it over to a being or belief or something that would have better tools to handle that kind of situation so that I could become stronger without having one hand constantly holding onto this rope. Then today, as I was still thinking about that and letting go of fears and allowing room for space for other things to come in, I realized that, I only think that this room is finite because I think that I am finite. If I imagine every time I take a deep breath that I get a little bit bigger, and I expand a little bit more, then that room expands a bit more. And it's not about taking things out of that room so that there can be room for goodness to come in. It's about expanding myself so that I create the space for peace and forgiveness and goodness to come in, to sit with my fear and my trauma and my insecurity, and to tell those things, it's okay that you're there, but we're here too, and we're going to help this inner child learn how to handle these things instead of just hiding away. So I was worried about making this video because at first I thought, I don't want to sound crazy. And I know that a lot of the time I do sound kind of bonkers because I kind of make up my own things to make myself feel better. For example, affirmations weren't really working for me, so I had to find something else that generated those feelings. I need things to generate certain feelings. Affirmations work for some people because they're able to click into that feeling of confidence, but some people aren't. And when it comes to manifesting, sometimes I can't click into that feeling of abundance, or I can't click into that feeling of pretending I'm rich when I'm very much not. But what I can do is imagine that I am expanding and that I'm allowing room for those things to come in. And in that, make sure that that expansion is built strongly and take care of myself in the best way that I can, and continue to try and exist in a way that does no harm to anyone or myself, so that I can trust all the decisions that I'm making and trust the actions that I'm doing. And I have no doubt that as I continue to focus on expanding myself to allow more space and room for all of these other things that I have been wanting so badly to come in and enter my life, that those things will come. But instead of focusing on those things and trying to shove those things into a space where I was continuing to make myself small, that I need to go ahead and make myself bigger. Because it's not that these things will come and will make me bigger. It's not that grace and abundance and freedom and security and safety will shove itself into this room and that I will naturally stretch to fit it. It's that it can't come in until I am big enough to fit it. And that is what I'm working on. And now it's just about creating, learning, and showing up and sharing that with the world in case it helps somebody else. Please let me know if you decide to do any kind of manifesting art or healing art. I'd love to hear if this resonated with you in any way and if it helped. I have a lot of analogies, so don't worry. I have plenty if you need a different one. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!